and CEO of Weightloss Solutions Australia, Felicity Cohen recently achieved great recognition as the recipient of the Gold Coast Women in Business of the Year Award. Besides leading Weightloss Solutions Australia, or WLSA, Felicity is a sought-after public speaker, the Wellness Warriors podcast host, and facilitates engaged social media platforms, all advocating for healthy lifestyles. Felicity is also the driving force behind the Yes You Can movement and Project Grit, initiatives aimed at equipping children with the skills, knowledge, and behaviours necessary for a healthy and fulfilling life. Cohen is actively working to put an end to the obesity epidemic, and she's making strides globally. Most recently, the WLSA multidisciplinary team model was referenced as the gold standard for clinical approaches to weight loss from Peak Body, the European Society of Gastrointestinal Endoscopy. WLSA has also partnered with King's College Hospital London, Dubai, in a bid to take the fight overseas, putting Australia at the forefront of health innovation globally. Wow, welcome to Pure Health Hub, Felicity.
It's a pleasure to be here, Lindy, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you as part of your conversation on Pure Health Hub, and what a great platform it is.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's a total treat to have you with us. Now, especially with your expertise, but look, there is so much talk about well-being and wellness, and particularly after COVID. Sometimes, though, we are the victim of our own success, I feel. You know, our careers can be all-consuming. Then as we get a little older, our parents, may need additional support. Our kids, of course, always require all sorts of activities to attend and demands to meet. And then we also need to be a great sister, aunt, and friend. The casualty is often our own personal health. We eat poorly, we stop exercising, etc., etc. So let's start at the top. Have you always been involved in the wellness industry? Were you always interested in your own holistic health, or was there a catalyst of sorts to point you in this direction?
I'd actually just firstly like to address that whole remark around, what has the society done to us that's led us to be on this roller coaster ride? Women being nurturers of the world, focused on everybody else before they put themselves in a place of priority. And I couldn't agree with you more that, the societal impact of environment, of social conditioning, of family, work-life balance, which is this, I guess, myth out there, it's quite a phenomenal kind of situation for us to find us in at this point in where we're at right now, and addressing health issues that have become so exacerbated because of this race to lead this ever-pressing, fast-paced lifestyle that's put us in a situation where health has no longer become the number one priority. Always, I guess, if you can count the last 3 years as always, then yes, I've always been focused, interested, and absolutely passionate about holistic healthcare and what does that look like. And when it comes to managing overweight and obesity, there isn't a band-aid, one quick fix solution. And I really am such a believer in making sure that we look at, the bigger picture, that there's so many pieces to the puzzle that we need to put together. You can't just look at one particular kind of solution or one element and latch onto that and believe that that's going to be the panacea of, good health and a solution that will give you what you want, because it just won't.
No, gosh, isn't that the case? And that's what we were saying just off camera before, was about the fact that we seem to, with the advent of modern medicine, we just sort of suddenly relinquish responsibility for our health and just said, give us a tablet. And there is no one thing that's going to help that except this collective health focus, right?
Look, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that so many people have, is that they put this trust and faith and belief system in their general practitioner or physician or whoever their treating doctor is. And when it comes to, for example, something like type 2 diabetes, just up the dose, more medication. Yeah. That's the cure. Or if you've got high cholesterol or high blood pressure, I can just take a tablet to fix that. We absolutely need to break through that kind of focus and belief system in, yes, a pill is going to fix it, because honestly, the last thing in the world it's going to do is fix your health problems from my personal position and standpoint. Yes, we need a combination of treatment modalities, and yes, the progression and development of modern medicine, absolutely, it's so important, and having the ability to prescribe responsibly and treat patients with all the different medications on the planet, 100%, it's so important. But we need to look at underlying causes and what can we do to change things ourselves so that we don't just get caught in this web of, oh, I'll just take a little bit more of that, that'll fix it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think, doctors, as I say, they're obviously medical profession, and modern medicine is a fabulous thing, but it really is about crisis care, right? So, it's getting to the point. I interviewed another naturopath a while ago, and she was saying there's really 6 stages to getting even to a doctor. So, before you even consider it. But we're here today to talk about one particular global public health issue, but particularly here in Australia, obesity. So it's one of the greatest health issues of our time, no doubt. How did we get here?
Look, I really believe that this is the absolute, the worst possible pandemic. If you want to look at global pandemics and where we are headed, where we are, obesity is definitely, or globesity, it is the one pandemic that we really need to understand and focus on to change the way we live and our future health trajectory as a population. And, when you look at the statistics in Australia, it's horrific. There's the National Health Obesity Strategy 2022 to 2032 quotes that there are 14 million Australians living with either overweight or obesity, and the incidence that is consistently rising as well in our childhood population is pretty frightening. That means that there's 2 in 3 adults right now in Australia who are either overweight or morbidly obese. So when you think about that, not one of us is not in some way touched by either a family member, a friend, a colleague, or someone in your network who is not impacted by being overweight or morbidly obese. And then we also really need to think about children, because to me, this worries me a lot. And having had 23 years of experience managing and treating adults, sadly, I know that we're never going to run out of adults to treat, but we really need to look at the expertise in an environment like the one that I've been fortunate enough to build and have such a passion around multidisciplinary healthcare systems, that we need to use our resources, our skills, our knowledge, and our ability to impact future generations. And, with kids in Australia, we're looking at 1 in 4 children currently who are suffering from either being overweight or morbidly obese. And, we just see it all the time that the impact of discretionary food choices, for example, people are spending far too much time on unhealthy diet. And yeah, that's something that I really want to see change as well.
Yeah. So do we think this really is as a result of, lack of knowledge, of nutrition knowledge, education, or is it more about things, or is it a mix of genetics, of medical reasons? Why are we so overweight and obese?
It is definitely multifactorial. So, of course, genetics plays a part. We can't deny that. Environment, genetics plays one part, if you like. Environment pulls the trigger. Genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger, if you like. And, I've often heard that expression used to look at, well, how do the two interact?
Yeah.
But then there's all these other influences. When we look at the rise of technological advancement in the world we live in, you can drive through to do absolutely everything you like. You can drive through, drop off your dry cleaning, you drive through to drop your kids off and pick them up from school, and someone will just call out their name. You can pick up McDonald's or a coffee or whatever you want. You actually don't even need to leave a moving vehicle. So we're not exactly encouraged to promote incidental movement and exercise. If you want to, you can comfortably dial whatever you want or do whatever you want through a drive-through situation that discourages movement. And look at us, we sit in front of computer screens and we interview via Zoom I think during COVID, I spoke to so many people over Zoom who would say to me that it was the worst thing ever because they were constantly confronted with seeing themselves gain weight. So
Well, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But yeah, it's so true, right? With the movement, I mean, obviously diet is one thing, but there's also the movement and the reduction in movement, which is that equally as to blame?
Oh, look, I think so. And I remind myself sometimes of the saying that you can't out-train a bad diet.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's true. You know, exercise is hugely important and something that I promote in our patient population every single day. And I love it. I live by it. I'm more productive. I'm more functional. I feel better. You know, mental health is so much more improved when we're physically active and out there, whether it's in nature or getting fresh air or whatever exercise looks like for you. It's a life changer in a multitude of ways. So I'm a huge, big advocate for moving more. In fact, one of my things with our patient population is sponsoring our patients to get involved in the Gold Coast Marathon, which is coming up in a few weeks. I had 100 last year who were sponsored to do something at the Gold Coast Marathon. And some of these people, for example, could not even have walked to their own letterboxes before they got involved in doing something at the Gold Coast Marathon. So for me, that's the greatest joy ever, you know, seeing people achieve these new goals, and it's life-changing. So yeah, movement is huge. I think it makes a massive difference. It's so important. And then when it comes to things like discretionary food choices, this is a huge, huge problem. In fact, I've got a little statistic here that alarmed me a lot. You know, 58% of the average household budget is spent on unhealthy food.
Oh, what?
Right. So this is out of the National Obesity Strategy 2022 to 2030. So when you think of it in those terms, yes, education has a big part to play.
Yeah.
Cost and inflation and availability and food security, you know, these are all factors that impact how we're living and the choices that we're making.
Yeah. Wow. That is a huge number of, you know, obviously the household budget on unhealthy food. I guess it's also availability, right? I mean, the stuff that's going onto the supermarket shelves every day becomes more concerning by the day. So
Horrendous.
It's cheap, it's just easy, convenient. Yeah, it's scary, isn't it?
So look, it is scary. And this is also something that really alarms me, that there are only 5% of Australians that are getting the right adequate intake of fruit and vegetables a day. So when you think about 5% are actually getting adequate intake, what does that mean for the other 95%?
Oh my goodness. So they're not only just adding poor food onto good food, they're not even getting the good food to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. It's got to be a lot to do with education, I think, you know, because it is cheaper. You can. I mean, I know everything's going up, but if you go and get yourself some veggies from the supermarket, it is cheaper than going and getting the family meal. All right. So look, you know, you've started to undertake this massive undertaking, for want of a better word. How do we reverse this trend? What are your views on that?
I think first, there's so many different things to talk about here, but let's just focus on a few of them. You know, reducing the stigma associated with being overweight and morbidly obese. This is a huge, big problem. Making sure that people are comfortable to have conversations.
Yeah.
The other part of that conversation is we absolutely cannot afford to normalize being overweight or morbidly obese. This is absolutely inappropriate. We cannot do that. And I see a lot of that. There's a lot of conversations around accepting a new normal when it comes to weight and size and shape. Being overweight is not healthy, and we just absolutely can't do that. So there's a lot of conversations to have around normalizing unhealthy weight, but also the stigma associated with where am I now and how do I reach out for help? And I think, you know, for a number of years, if I go back to when I first started my career in this industry sector 23 years ago, I was so shocked by the position of so many general practitioners who would literally just say to their patients, you need to lose some weight, you know what to do. That was how it was expressed. And unfortunately, the sad reality, and that most people don't know, and due to poor social conditioning, 98% of diet and exercise programs alone will fail at some point, whether it's at 1 year out or between 1 and 5 years. So we absolutely need to change that perception. We need to change our social conditioning around acceptability, and we need to make people feel confident, comfortable, and capable of putting up their hands and reaching out for help, and understanding that it's not okay to be morbidly obese, to live with sleep apnea, type 2 diabetes, and all the chronic diseases that go hand in hand. You know, it's taken us such a long time to get to a worldwide position of, classifying morbid obesity as a chronic disease. It is not your fault. And, that's, I think, so important. It's treatable, it's manageable. And we've got so many different treatment modalities now and options to treat each individual. So careful assessment, diagnosis, and the ability to manage a patient in the right environment. And definitely, we speak the same language when it comes to holistic healthcare, because having a multidisciplinary team to support any patient going on this journey, no matter what their treatment option is really critical, because we want permanent, sustainable, lifelong change. My big thing for any patient is I want to see everybody, all Australians, live in their own homes until they're 95, healthy, fit and well, and never end up in an aged care facility. And that's the vision that I had of my own grandmother. She was a pacer for an Olympic swimming team. She was super avant-garde. She went to university in Sydney when women didn't. And, to have had that as one of my, I guess, greatest mentors in life, survival of the fittest. It was a beautiful example, living in your own home until you're 95. That's what we should be aiming for.
Yeah. So do you think there really is something pointing at the fact that the less healthy we are, the more likely we are to end up in like a nursing home? Is there a correlation there somewhere?
Oh, absolutely. We need to
is that right?
100%, functional fitness and mobility.
Yeah.
If you don't have the capacity to, and excuse the crude terminology, but if you can't wipe yourself, feed yourself, or maybe pick up a spoon off the kitchen floor, and you don't have the functional fitness and mobility to cope with everyday life skills, your trajectory and your projection of potentially ending up in a nursing home is not great. We see this massive rise in things like, dementia and Alzheimer's and other conditions, that there's so many diseases associated with being overweight and morbidly obese that are preventable. And, type 2 diabetes being one of the most significant. But the complications that go hand in hand with that, and the evolution of, other diseases associated over time, is really, really critical. It is not enough to say I've got type 2 diabetes, but that's being managed, I'm taking medication for that. No,
it's a lifestyle change and, reinvention, really, without a doubt. As we were saying before, it's no secret, I'm type 2 now. Yeah,
absolutely. So, whatever we can put in place to prevent and support people before they reach that point of diagnosis, that's really important. But also looking to find ways of reducing the impact so that there's not ongoing development of that disease. So you can stop it in its tracks as well. We don't want it to get worse. Rather than allow it to worsen, let's treat now, manage, and prevent future progression.
Yeah, absolutely. Prevention is what it's all about, right? I mean, at the end of the day. All right. So while we're talking about the whole diabetes thing, actually, and all this talk about Ozempic, that medication that's all over the news at the moment, because doctors are prescribing it more as a weight loss treatment than to the point where diabetics are then not getting access to it. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, it's a medication that's designed to treat diabetic patients, and they should be first priority no matter what.
Would have thought, yeah.
Let's look at what are the risks associated with this drug. You only have to have a look on the Ozempic website to see that there are some really serious risk factors associated with being on this medication. it's, once again, it's not a Band-Aid solution. It's not just a magic pill. It's dangerous and it carries risks. So maybe have a look at what that looks like. You only have to refer to their own website to see what those risks look like. And like anything, it can't be administered in an environment where here's a script for Ozempic, just go home and use that and you'll be fine and you'll lose weight. No, you absolutely need to have this offered in an environment where you've got the support of, a team care situation. So you do need a dietitian, you do need a psychologist, you do need the right medical practitioners to support you if that's the right treatment modality for you, whether it's because you're diabetic or because you're on another journey. But I think it carries a lot of risks and it needs to be entered into very carefully. It might have a place to play as part of an overall treatment plan too for a morbidly obese patient who's at risk of type 2 diabetes as well, if there's family history and other factors involved. But I think it really there needs to be a lot of caution around who should be prescribed Ozempic and why. Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that, because I do come from a history of family with type 1 and type 2, but at no point was I ever, despite, because I'll go back a little bit, because I had a very large baby 28 years ago, right? 12-pound-9, nearly 30, 11-9, nearly 12-pound. Knowing that and knowing that that's a potential for diabetes down the track, I tested every year for 20 years, 25 years. And they kept saying, no, you're fine. And it was only because of an ambulance trip, because of my back or whatever, that they tested and said that. So the thing about Ozempic, and my point about that is nobody at any point said that I was pre-diabetic. Like, I'd never heard of the term pre-diabetic when I was finally diagnosed 3 years ago. So, there's so much that isn't explained around the whole diabetes. But my point coming to that was the medication is no walk in the park. And so that's why I was flabbergasted that they're prescribing this for people to lose weight. I mean, really, you've got to take a long, hard look at that. I don't take it, but I did try it once and it was really made me violently ill. So I'm just surprised that doctors are prescribing this for people to lose weight. It's just flabbergasting. Anyway, but
you and me both. There's got to be a lot of caution around responsible prescribing for who and why. 100%, it's got to be done with serious caution for any patient.
It's amazing. Anyway, onto something a lot more exciting. One of your accomplishments is your partnership with King's College Hospital, London, Dubai. Tell us a little more about that.
That's a really exciting moment for me, because what I can see happening in other parts of the world and having an impact globally by expanding, our knowledge and using the systems that we've created over the past 20 odd years, we can take that model of care and implement it into other countries and other destinations where obesity is also an increasingly significant problem. And when you look at the UAE, to start with, it's a young population with very serious obesity situation, and the chronic diseases associated and the number of patients that are being diagnosed with things like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, for example, in this population is significant. The diabetic population is huge, and also they have a massive problem of childhood overweight and obesity as well. So I think the opportunity to impact globally a destination that is really suffering and at such a young age, what I can actually see happening long term if the obesity problem is not managed better in the UAE is that because of the young population, you're going to have a health system that is going to suffer and be overburdened with chronic diseases that they'll just really explode in the next few decades. So it's a critical timing situation to manage, treat, and improve what's going on in that part of the world. And I really want to make an impact and a difference to these patients now. There's such a lack of education over there, and to partner with King's, definitely it's a really huge honour, and to work with the doctors, the physicians and the team over there is fantastic. So it is really, really exciting, and to be able to take our systems, globally and create that change is that's what I'd love to be able to leave as my own legacy.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And it's not just the UAE, is it? I think, well, I mean, the world is having a problem with obesity, but some of these sort of more emerging, and I've probably said the wrong word, but emerging societies such as UAE and China also has a big issue with obesity and diabetes. And, and I've noticed here in Australia, the lack of information available. So let alone countries like China and the UAE.
When you're looking at Southeast Asian populations, they're exposed to incidents of type 2 diabetes at a much lower body mass index than Western patient population. But you've also got a huge problem where they're now being impacted by Western diet, and not adapting. And, you've got kind of, if you think about it, they've gone from famine to feast.
Yes.
And genetically, they can't cope, and it's causing some shocking problems. So definitely something to look at, what are we doing wrong and how do we fix it? And, yes, you're right. It's not just the UAE, it's that whole Gulf region, and changing thought processes, mindset around health attitudes is a huge, huge task.
Yeah, and the only reason I know about China is because I spent a lot of time there while I was building my cross-border health company, which is moving people around for medical treatment. So serious medical treatment, not boobs and bumps. And, there was a lot, everybody, hospital and society and health society I was talking to was like, do you know anybody who's, familiar with diabetes and obesity? And, we need those specialists up here quickly, so it was extraordinary. So
the exciting thing is, though, that with about 10% of weight loss, you can actually completely reverse. And I know that often we're not meant to use the word reverse when it comes to diabetes, maybe into remission. But yes, we can actually reverse that situation. And what I love so much is when I see patients who are at 6 weeks post a bariatric surgical intervention, they're off their diabetes medication. That's winning for me.
Telling, isn't it? It's telling how, because it's not a lot at the end of the day when you talk about 10%. I mean, it's, so I've still got some way to go, but anyway. All right. So now, most recently, staying on this, on weight loss. Sorry, I'm just having a mental block. WLSA. So most recently, your research is being referenced as the gold standard by the European Society of Gastrointestinal Endoscopy. As I said in the intro, how does that make you feel about the work that you do?
It makes me firstly feel incredibly proud. One of my other areas of passion is research and evidence-based results that we can actually then expand what we are doing globally to make a difference. So over the past 18 months, I've been involved in developing a separate business, which is the Research Institute for Future Health. And I have some amazingly talented researchers. This is absolutely a passion for me. I love it more than anything. But, it's so important to not just, when I say a multidisciplinary team makes a big difference in a patient's life, it's something that we've researched and evidenced, and, that we know what works because we've done the research to back up everything that we do. And I think that's really important, that we can do that in so many different areas. So the piece of research that you're referring to was looking at the endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty, which is one of the newer bariatric non-surgical procedures, comparing with the traditional laparoscopic sleeve surgical procedure. And so to have that picked up by a European society as gold standard in terms of the treatment modality and the influence of a multidisciplinary team, that's huge, because it's what we know works. And we need to be able to make that clear that, like anything, there isn't a band-aid solution when it comes to management of overweight or obesity. So it's not just about having a surgical procedure either. It's about having this team of people to support, guide, nurture, manage, educate to get those really good results. So yeah, it's a huge, big, proud moment for me.
Yeah, I bet. And clearly, truly passionate about it. That shines through without a doubt. Congratulations on everything so far, Felicity. It's really, it's obviously, well, I could say that it's short, but it's been 23 years in the making, right? So you've put your blood, sweat and tears into it. So congratulations on where you are to date. And thanks so much for chatting to me today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Lindy. The 23 years has literally flown by, and I hope I've got a lot more to give and to leave behind before I can, really say I've made a huge impact. Love what I do every day, and it's just been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.